Welcome. We are here together as the Gentle Passage Doula Collective, and we're so excited to tell you about our program and our offerings. And I'm Kathleen, and I'm just one of the trainers. And we all come from different backgrounds and we have different personal histories. And some of us have spent more of the time in the front of the lines around death and dying and loss and suffering. And more of us have also spent more time in education and in managing people who are on the front lines. And we came together because we're answering a calling that was palpable to all of us in our personal lives, our professional lives. And we came together to support one another as end-of-life doulas, as holistic, non-medical practitioners, which meant that we had to take off our hats of being educators and frontline practitioners, but rather step back and see a bigger picture. And in doing that, we started death cafes. And when we started our death cafes, people kept asking our group, why are you not training other people to be doulas? Why are you not taking the years of social work that Kathy has, the years of Bonnie in long-term care, the years of Maureen working in hospice and frontline nursing, and Colleen as an educator, a nurse? Why are you guys not bringing this forward? So here we are. We're thrilled. And we have a vision that end-of-life doulas will become a household name, just like birth doulas, and that every place that faces the fear and suffering around death, not just the aging population, but that every community that needs the spiritual, mental, physical, emotional community to support the process of individuals and families have that. So we're growing our community of doulas. We have membership, we have trainings, we have webinars, and we have death cafes. And so one of my very favorite sayings, and I know it's my dear friend Colleen's favorite saying too, is that this process as a doula, we are all just walking each other home, Ram Dass. And so I'm going to hand this off to you, Colleen.
Well, I love that saying, and I think we all love that saying. Ram Dass was a spiritual teacher and author, and really, he said that the most important thing you can do in your life is the dying part. And we don't usually put it as the most important thing. And he said, this is the frontier that all of us have to go through. And so when I think of this walking each other home, I think everybody I meet walks me home in some way or another, step by step. And the closer I get to death, there will be other people who will walk me home. But the quote to me is the journey of life, and that we are all interconnected on this journey, and we support each other. And this is what a doula does. She supports people, or he or she supports people, and they help them navigate through this with compassion and understanding. So that's what it means. I mean, it's not real complicated. What do the rest of you think?
It is an amazing journey. It is one of really being called. I remember sharing with my husband when I found the first conscious dying program that I did, is that's what I'm supposed to be. And that is what resonates in so many people that we have trained already, Colleen.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's excellent. I think of and I'll just make it extremely short. I think of a doula story that she was working with a gentleman who was diagnosed with a terminal illness. He knew he had very, very short time to live, but he had a very good relationship with this doula. And so he asked her to help plan his last few months. And what she did was she just guided him through these simple things. What was he proud of in his life? What regrets did he have? Who is he grateful for? She helped him write letters. So when the time came for him to die, he really, in this particular case, was not afraid because he felt a completion. Now, that's an example of walking someone home. The other thing that I often think about is how in our society do we normalize death? People don't want to talk about death. You know, they basically move away from it. I have had friends change the topic. You know, I remember being in Whole Foods once after I became an end-of-life doula, and the friend asked me, you know, what are you doing now? And I told her, and all of a sudden her eyes flashed over to the tomatoes, and she says, well, did you notice that the price of tomatoes has changed? Now that seems like that's, you know, really in your face, but it happens all the time. So how do we normalize this?
I think we normalize it by talking about it and sharing with people. I ran into something similar, and the man said, "Oh, I can't believe you do that." And I said, "Well, we're all going to die. And what a different experience I've had by people that have had the courage to talk about this and talk about what they want." And I said, "You're not going to live forever, and neither are those that you love." So I said, "I would really love to encourage you to reframe your thinking
Mhm.
around this." And I said, because it could really change the dynamic of the end of life for you or those you love. And he's like, "I never thought of that." But he was horrified when I first told him what we were doing. But I think the more we can have these courageous conversations, the more we can help people have the courage to have them too.
You know, Maureen, I know that one of the areas in that you really focus on and are so good with is advanced directives. And all that says to me is, you know, most people approach life unprepared, you know, so it's not, it goes beyond the documentation, but it starts with the documentation, you know. And so they say that preparing for death can be one of the most healing and life affirming things you can do. And I often get people saying, well, how is it healing? Well, it kind of puts things to rest for you. You can put it on a shelf and go live your life.
Yeah. That's what I hear so often when people get it done.
Yeah.
People that have worked with advanced directives, I've heard a number of times, "I'm afraid if I do this, it will manifest my death." So that's another form of education. And by educating, we help take away the fear, like I said before.
You know, the other thing that just kind of segues into that topic is and Barbara Carnes, a well-known hospice, a well-known internationally, nationally well-known hospice nurse, author. She has a company. She's known throughout for her work, many awards. She always says, you know, death is a community event, not a medical event. And I had to think about that for a while, but she's right. The idea that death is a community event rather than a medical event is based on the idea that death is a social process that we go through with our loved ones, and it involves the community because the physicians and the healthcare providers can only take us to a point. But after that point, when we go into active dying, it's the family and the friends and the church, and they can be there all along. But, you know, if somebody's in palliative care and then they go into hospice care, things progress. And so it used to be a community event pre-Civil War, you know, and now you know, people are getting back to that with home funerals, etc. You know, so it's there can be a shift in care, and I'm seeing it as it becomes more community. I'm wondering what you guys are seeing.
I would like to jump in there because I think it really has become more of a community event. When you think back, like you were saying, back in the Civil War times, or even back in the last century, people did die at home. It wasn't until we started aging and we started getting all these new treatments that people would go to the hospital and die in the hospital. But it was more that people wanted to die at home. And I think as what I see is that people want to die at home. They don't want to die in an institution. And they want to die at home where they can have their family, their friends around, working priest or their minister or spiritual guide person to be there with them. And then if things start going south, then they call the doctor and say, hey, I need something for this. But uh, it really is more of a community event. And
Yeah,
I
I
love
so
that.
agree. I so
Yet
agree.
only 30 to maybe 40% now actually die at home. We say we want to die at home and make it that community event, but we don't. And that's because of the fear of death, the fear of making these decisions. So yeah, it's so much more powerful. Not much more powerful. Some people don't want to die at home,
It's true.
and that's okay too.
Right.
But it's helping people for what they want. If they want to die at home, help them to die at home. If they want to die somewhere else, help them to die somewhere else. And it's really powerful for these folks.
You know, when we're talking about community, this just goes right into how is the population changing? You know, we're into the silver tsunami. I mean, the statistics are mind-boggling. What do you all think? I mean, it's changed.
It's changed significantly, and a lot of that has to do with the population of baby boomers. It is the unprecedented largest group of folks becoming seniors, and it is truly amazing. In fact, by 2060, 95 million people will be aging in place, which is a significant number for our communities and our nation. The other thing is that a lot of people don't realize the impact that 20% of people 65 years and older actually have no support system. They don't have children, they don't have extended families. And oftentimes I see, and Maureen, maybe you hear this too, where the attorney is the person's durable power of attorney for both health and finance. And yet they've been in a professional relationship with people for a long, long time. Another aspect that folks don't realize is actually social isolation, and that is growing as well, where people don't have those support systems and feel isolated, and for whatever reasons don't get out and join other things, activities or walking or having meals with other people, and it's really hard. And another major piece of all of this is the lack of caregivers. And it is really significant, the caregiver shortage. And it doesn't matter in what area you're looking at, whether it's in a hospital setting or skilled nursing, assisted living, home health agencies are struggling constantly, and even hospice entities are struggling to staff. And that's why an end-of-life doula really provides a adjunct, a complementary to the medical team, if you will. It is quite significant because just the other day, this week, I'm on the phone to a doctor's office. I am 28th in line of the queue. Think about that for anybody having to wait on the telephone to be able to reach a healthcare provider. That is a huge example of how challenging it is right now.
Kathy,
Well, this-
thank you. I want to just jump in here because you're speaking to so much about the passion and calling that we hear from our students around when we can step out from the medical institutions, not being an employee. Some doulas are. We can step out from our own personal lives and what our family's decisions might be, our own, any institution, religion, education, whatever. We as doulas can provide a non-judgmental, a compassionate, and just what you're speaking to, the patience to sit on the phone to help advocate, because all that takes energy, so much energy.
Well, you know, you're starting to talk about the question that I'm sure our listeners would probably want to know. What is the role of an end-of-life doula?
Great question. And like Kathleen just said, end-of-life doula is someone who is non-medical, non-judgmental. That person who is a doula is actually a guide, someone who is helping, literally what Colleen says, walk someone home. And one of our roles as end-of-life doula is actually education, because a lot of people, because they haven't talked about dying, don't know what that process is all about, or what steps do we take in order to have a beautiful, end-of-life experience. It is a big challenge for folks. And end-of-life doulas really have the opportunity to not only educate, but to model what kind of care that they can help the families and loved ones provide to the individual who's dying. We get to help them create an end-of-life plan that is really about what the individual likes. For instance, a long time ago, I had a client, one of the things that was terribly important to her is that she was being bathed daily and she wanted to wear a white nightgown. Something as simple as that is part of the role of being an end-of-life doula. And we also have the opportunity as a doula to be a conduit with the hospice team as well. We may be seeing things that the family doesn't. And in the last 6-7 years that I've been doing this, hospice nurses are very supportive of our role because they will be asking us, and because we are training folks to be a little bit more of where when somebody is in pain or discomfort or there's different family dynamics going on, we really do get to be a guide and a gentle guide, reminding us also, once again, non-medical, non-judgmental. Advocacy is a huge proponent of our task as an end-of-life doula. And sometimes it works for some people, but it is an innate knowing and intuition that the end-of-life doula brings to the bedside, brings to the family. One of the great gifts I see in my role as an end-of-life doula is being able to ease the pain, and I don't mean physical pain. I mean a spiritual, emotional, psychological pain as an individual is moving toward the end of their life, towards death. So living each moment until we die is one of a statement paraphrase from Barbara Carnes, but it is so true. We also can help people with memorials, planning for funerals. There's occasions where we as end-of-life doulas are asked, can you help prepare? Can you help plan this with me? We also help after death by providing bereavement support as well. These are just some of the pieces of being an end-of-life doula.
You know, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Respite was another piece that I wanted to just to mention very briefly, is that as an end-of-life doula, we may be at the bedside so that a loved one can take a shower or take their child school shopping. Colleen?
Yeah, well, you know, those are actually all great points for being an end-of-life doula. But I'm just wondering, since we're all end-of-life doulas and we've done it in different capacities, what are some of the skills? I'm going to throw this out to the group. What are some of the skills you guys use? Bonnie, Maureen, Kathleen?
I think one of the biggest things is you have to be present. You have to be present to that person. So you have to think about it when you go in. You can't be thinking about all the other 50,000 things that you need to do, but you have to be able to take a minute before you walk into a room or walk into a home of someone who you've agreed to serve and be totally present to them. And it is a skill. It takes practice, but I think that's one of the really important ones from my perspective.
And listening.
Oh, yeah.
They always say we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, but when you just sit back and listen, you get some of the most rich and valuable information about that person. And it can be a little uncomfortable. I don't like there to be gaps in the conversation, but as I've learned to just sit and be, that's when some of the most rich conversations emerge. So that's a skill that has to be learned too.
And that's a profound opportunity for someone to be heard, to be acknowledged, to be validated. It's amazing the things that we as an end-of-life doula, by bringing a calm, peaceful presence, and how things can come to the surface and unfinished business can get resolved, and people can also then die feeling at peace and full of beauty and grace. It is also being resourceful, because sometimes we can't do it all as an end-of-life doula, and we need to know when our limits are and when to refer out. And there are other folks in the community that can step in and help the individual and their families. What do you think about that, Bonnie?
Well, I think, of course, it is really important that we have all those skills of being resourceful and getting to know our communities, being present. You know, deep listening is also another skill that we have, and just the whole idea of compassionate care is really, I think, what we're about. So I think that when you're at the bedside, or whether you're working with families or significant others, you do learn a lot. And silence is a skill that you need to develop, because sometimes people don't want to hear you talking. They just want to be able to vent or
Yep.
say what they need to say. So yeah, it's all important. There's a lot of skills that we bring to the table.
Yeah, one thing I'm going to add here is caregivers aren't that great at taking care of themselves, and you can't be present, and you can't hold space, and you can't listen with an open heart if you are not doing your own self-care. So I'm a huge self-care advocate, especially for that compassion fatigue, that burnout that so many of us answered this calling for in our professions. It's really easy to get burnt out. And I think one thing about that is learning our scope of practice, which looks a lot different than other professions. And, you know, we cover all of that in our training and in our coaching and our ongoing webinars. So I just thought, Bonnie, you talk a lot, and so do you, Colleen, very eloquently. Actually, all of you do, about the scope of practice or anything, everything. And so some of the top questions or burning questions, is there anything that anybody wants to add to this? I just want to hand it off.
You know, one of the things I would just say about the training is that we all went through different trainings. Some of us took the same trainings, but we've all experienced different trainings. We've all gone for ongoing training, even after we became doulas. But the thing that we all discovered as we were compiling our training is that we wanted to make sure that you got what was absolutely necessary in the training to be able to jumpstart doing this work. And it's also why we created a whole program that's not just about you come to us for training, but that you stay with us to get more training. So we have these other opportunities besides what's in the curriculum. And I would just say about the curriculum that it's very rich. It's very engaging. Even when we do it online, it's very engaging. We kind of like the in-persons a lot because we get to see everybody's faces and we get to know people really well when we spend a whole 2 days together. But we've been able to really recreate that with our virtual training as well. So I'm not going to go through all the topics that we cover, but it's a lot, it's rich, but it's not overwhelming. And if you stick with us, and we do, I think Maureen, you know all about all the different benefits, but I think you will share that very easily. But it's one of the things that I really value is that you get this additional year with us to take different classes if you want to get some coaching and things like that. So, and that really augments what we give you in the very beginning of the training. So, our training is immersive. So we do a lot of group work. 3 of us in this group come from an educator background, so but we all collaborated on putting this curriculum together. And you know, we're really focused on supportive learning, and that's why we have this additional time that we scheduled in, because we all with, and we didn't want to do that to our participants. So that's how we went about it. So Maureen, do you want to talk a little bit about the benefits?
Oh, I love talking about the benefits, Bonnie. So Kathleen and Bonnie especially have touched on this is the training and then more. So the more is we think that what you learn in our training is what you need to know to get started. And we do a monthly coaching or a monthly training webinar 11 months of the year. So you get 11 additional trainings because we feel that there's stuff that's good to know that you should put in your toolbox. Some of the things we don't touch on building a business in our initial training because there's so much to get into the either weekend training or the 8 weeks. But we do have resources for building a business that we do in our monthly training webinars or in our coaching sessions. We can talk you through that. We have monthly coaching. And I think it's been stressed that we don't want to just graduate you and then let you out on your own. We have a real passion for community and the sense of community. And that's one of the things that we all felt was lacking a bit. Uh, that's why the five of us came together, because we were all doing different types of end of life doula work, but we were like little silos by ourselves and we wanted community. And when we found that, we thought we want to give that to others. So we're here. We have a Facebook group where you have questions that you want answered before the monthly coaching call. But it's a rich, valuable program. Some other things that we offer, you get a 1-year membership to our collective with your registration fee. You get discounts, and we have members that have, like, we have a member that teaches a rich business building course, how to get started, and she gives a discount because she's a member of our group. We can mentor you. We have a lot of community connections, and we also want to give opportunities to you doulas as they come up, as we get to know you and you start to build your business. If we hear of needs, you're our go-to. And we also are creating a new website, and there's going to be a page for our members that have doula businesses, so that we can promote you along with that. Anything else you guys think I'm missing on that part of what our membership means, the benefits of being part of this?
Yeah, we have also one of the things for our members is a private Facebook group in which we can connect. And we're so tickled that so many of our classes, the members of each class, whether it's virtual or in person, have joined our Facebook so that they're collaborating and connecting with one another. That's also a very special gift, Maureen.
You brought up something important. They're also connecting on our coaching webinars. They're connecting on our training webinars, and they then are getting connected, whether they live in the area or elsewhere. But there's doulas that we have that are now connected with others that weren't in their training program, but they're all part of our collective, and they're supporting each other. And that is so valuable, I think. One of the other things that I love is that if you are a registered nurse, a CNA, we a licensed professional, we do offer 14 units of continuing education hours for taking this training if you need that continuing education. So we can offer that to the licensed professionals. You don't have to be a licensed professional. I think Kathleen might have touched on it, or someone else. Sometimes it's easier not to come with a medical background. You just come with that calling and that passion for doing this work. So just remember, whether you have a medical background or not, it doesn't matter. It's just that calling and this desire to join us. We would love for you to register today. We have a training coming up, and we will have ongoing trainings through the next year. We have either a 2-day in-person that's local in the Seattle area, or an 8-week virtual class that meets for 2 hours once a week over the course of 8 weeks. And both of those, like, I think it was you, Kathleen, that said we've created a rich environment with our virtual. I was worried about that when we first started because I thought, how can you get that same connection? Yet we do. My college roommate was in our first training, and she, at the end of it, said, I feel so connected to everyone in this group, although I've never met them in person. So those are just some of the things. Would love for you to sign up and join us. We are on a mission to create a safe community for people to practice end-of-life doulas. There will never be enough because there's just not enough of us out there, and would love to have you join us.
Thank you.
I think Kathleen froze. So thanks, sweetie. You can reach us at gentlepassagedoulacollective.com. We have an events page, and you can find our events. Reach out to us at info@gpdoulacollective.com. And if you're interested in more information, send us an email, send us a message to our website, or just go ahead and register today. We'd love to have you join us. Thanks so much.
Look forward to seeing you soon.